We are heading into our last session of Wavelengths, so I encourage you again to get cozy, and I'd like to propose a toast. Thank you to Global Fest, to The Office, to NPR Music. I'm very excited about this last session, so if you have a drink, you have a power shawl, let's see it. So as we head into this session, I think we're going to see some very familiar faces that we've all come to love. We have the wonderful Catalina Maria Johnson, who's going to lead us in a discussion with Bob Boilen and Felix Contreras. So Bob is the creator of NPR's online music show, All Songs Considered, and the Tiny Desk series. And Felix, you know, as the co-creator and host of NPR's Alt.Latino. And we're going to chat with them about their curatorial lenses and their favorite avenues of musical discovery. Leading us in this conversation and fireside chat is the one and only Catalina Maria Johnson. She has a PhD and is a Chicago-based journalist. She hosts and produces her own radio show, Beat Latino, which airs in Chicago on Vocalo as part of Chicago Public Media, and in select US cities and Berlin. Catalina is also an Illinois Humanities Rhodes Scholar, a regular contributor to NPR Bandcamp, Downbeat, and other outlets, and she's a member of the editorial board of Revista Contratiempo. So please, Catalina, welcome, and we look forward to hearing this fireside chat as we wrap up Wavelengths.
Wow. Well, what a pleasure and what a privilege to be here. And congratulations to the whole team for this amazing pivot. And I got my whiskey on the side. I can't start yet. What a treat. There aren't that many silver linings maybe in these pandemic times, but certainly having the opportunity to speak with Felix and Bob, that's precious and priceless. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to start with a few questions, and then there's, please put in the chat your questions. We'll try to spend most of our time with that kind of Q&A with these brilliant curatorial minds from NPR Music. And I will be seeing them on my phone one by one so that I can pick them out. But if you want to share where you are and your perspective, you know, artist, publicist, artist rep, that'd be helpful. And then we'll do our best to get to all of them. So here we are, and I'm curious for each of these really amazing colleagues, what was your earliest kind of curatorial experience in the sense of what music was it? Could have been when you were, you know, a child or an adolescent or a young, you know, adult, or recently. What are some of the earliest musical experiences with a band or an artist or a moment that have shaped your current vision, and why?
Bob, you go first, man.
Yeah.
It may be the same. Who knows? Hi, everybody. So I love seeing these faces because a lot of them I missed this past January at Global Fest. So Banning, I'm looking at you and others. Hi, all. So, hey, I'm old. The Beatles. I mean, just that whole adventure that happened in music, where music changed, and as a listener in my little AM radio, I could experience something that it felt earth-shaking. It was new. The music was new. And what happened, you know, I'm talking about 1963 and 4, what happened in the next 4 or 5 years was this unfolding of music like the world had never heard. And I just expect that. I just want that still. So, you know, it's a cliche on one level to say the Beatles for somebody my age, but hell, I mean, it changed everything, and it was amazing, and it was freeing for musicians.
Wow. Felix, compadre.
I thank you, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. And thank you, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to be part of this. I think that from the curatorial level, I think it was when we were kids. I grew up in Sacramento, California. I'm of Mexican-American background, Chicano background. And I think it was the curatorial experience of when I would wake up in the morning, my mom would have the Spanish language radio, the Mexican radio on, and she'd be listening to mariachi, norteña, and all this stuff, you know, the Mexican music. And I'm the oldest of 4 boys, we would get up and we'd change it right away to the top 40. So when we're getting ready for school, we're hearing Jackson 5, we're hearing the Beatles, we're hearing all that stuff, where this is like 71, 72, anytime actually before that, 68, 69, stuff like that. So yeah, it was like, I think that's some of the earlier, looking back on it, that's like, that's a curation experience where we just sort of took over and existing in both worlds. And then eventually getting, since I'm early 60s, eventually, turning that dial over, that was the AM pop radio. Then turning that dial over to the FM and listening to the underground radio in the Northern California and Sacramento and all that. And then hearing all, everything from Stravinsky to Jeff Beck to Frank Zappa and of course Santana and all that. So I think that those early experiences, those kind of early experiences kind of shaped what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I'm going to just add to that, Felix, because that switch from commercial AM to the FM was key, because what you had were, and this was sort of unimaginable, you had these DJs walking in with the records under their arms, the things they loved, and they would talk about their passions. And that has instilled me and informed me ever since. Like, don't play anything you don't love.
So how do people get what you might love into your hands? What's your discovery process? How do we inform you of what you're gonna love?
Felix,
what are your habits?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go back and forth. Initially, when we started Alt.Latino, it was 10 years ago in June. We had a hard time. It was Jasmine Garst and I started the show. We had a hard time tracking down the artists that we wanted to find, right? I mean, we were, it's called Alt.Latino because we wanted to zero in on the Latin alternative part of this, which was, 10 years ago was a budding category, genre, and before that was called rock en español. And we were having a hard time just trying to find it, right? And convincing people to send us CDs and records and stuff. And we went to the majors and nobody had, they weren't releasing that stuff. And it was, eventually we found out it was Nacional, it was Cosmica, it was ZZK, it was all of those labels like that were doing the stuff that we wanted to play. And then a lot of self-release stuff, people doing their own thing, and discovering that through the LAMC, places like that. So that's how we developed the contacts and established ourselves. Like, hey, there's an outlet for this stuff. So send us anything and everything you got. And that's still the case. I mean, there's more digital product. People are sending stuff all the time digitally. I'm old school. I still like to have the CDs and listen to them. But yeah, now it's just, people.
But how do they get you to pay attention to, I mean, now we know Nacional and Cosmica, we know, and Bob, and I'm sure you have your kind of list of trusted sources. But what if you're not a trusted source? What if you're out in, somewhere else? And how am I, what will catch your ear, and how will process-wise, what information and what way do I need to get it to you so that you do find out if you love it or not?
Personally, I listen to everything. Honestly, I really do. I listen to everything. I try to listen to, at least one song of everything that comes in. It takes a lot of time because now there are more and more Latin alternative artists, or just straight ahead hip hop artists, or electronic artists, or rock artists. There are more and more people sending our stuff. And it's a combination of, my own tastes, it's an effort not to put the whole boomer emphasis on the show because I try to have, initially it was Jasmine who was bringing me the Latin hip hop and the reggaeton and all that stuff that I discovered, because I'm not of the hip hop generation. So she helped me understand and find a place for myself and give me some kind of criteria to make a judgment on what is worth listening to and what's not. I still don't consider myself an expert, but at least I have an ear for it, and I'm open to that. and just it's a combination of hearing stuff I like, something I like, and of course I'm always open to and interested in anything that blends genres, right? That whole, I keep going to ZZK, but that stuff, those guys like Chan Xavier Circuito, what he's doing down there, those kind of things, those kind of acts will always be special. Me, the sound chemist, the sound alchemist, right? Those kind of things always. And I try to, I run things past. Stephanie Fernandez has been a contributor. I'll send her stuff. What do you think of this? Is this artist worth listening to? What do you know about him, etc.
And Bob, is it the same for you, or what are
Well,
your kinds of discovery processes?
Felix, the fact that you listen to at least a song of everything blows my mind. So
Yeah.
I used to, I'd say until about 2007 or 8, I would listen to everything that came my way. It's physically, I get 500 emails a day. A good chunk of those, 300 to 400 of those are pitches. So you start there. It just isn't possible, right? So,
Yeah.
and I love that we're a creative culture and we have, the ability to, so many people in this culture make, I get as much music in a single day as in that year I talked about in 1964, that entire year of albums I get probably in a single day. And so how is probably the question. So
Right.
what? One thing is until March 13th of last year, I was an avid concert goer. I'd see somewhere between 400 and 600 bands a year. And I would, and many of them were the opening acts. And that's an amazing place for discovery. I mean, Global Fest, I go there and see 12 bands and try to cover a handful of them. So
Yeah, remember.
seeing live music is just the best. It's the most honest place for me to find the music. You can see their abilities. Sometimes they didn't make they're two different forms, right? Making a record is one talent and performing live is another. And sometimes that first record ain't so good, but you can see it when you go see them live. So I really love that experience. So that's, 400 to 600 artists that I'll go see in a year.
But what do we don't have that now.
Right.
So what's it going to be in the subject line that's going to, how to,
Oh, well, first of all, there are publicists who honestly, dearly, passionately love music. They are, and so these are people I can trust. There are other publicists who get paid to what they do and they send me things. And it gets clear. I mean, All Songs is 21 years old. All Songs Considered is a music show I do for those who don't know. All Songs is 21 years old. I've been dealing with a lot of people a long time. I know which ones are going to send me stuff that are things that my show and my taste will be passionate and care about. And then, the ones that I trust, there's a number of them and I trust. I do not read press releases. And so I fall in love with the music and then I'll go look at the story, but the story is not what's going to bring me to the music, because for the listener, it's got to hit them, and if it didn't hit me, I don't care what the story. I mean, I can't say I don't care what the story. That's a little flip, but you know what I mean. It's the music's going to be the thing that grabs me on fire. So I have my trusted sources, right? So I go through that email and I've got my ones that fly into my VIP box, so there's those. And then I try to be random, try to just pick things that just out of my mailbox. Don't pass this along to anybody else, but there are many people who have found their way to my personal inbox, and I try to be random about those, because those are the ones who don't have the money to pay a publicist. Those are the ones who probably are not out there doing a concert in Washington, D.C. in particular, but maybe they're doing it in their home city. So I love those. And I love music festivals that are going to bring me stuff that, not the top stuff. I don't care about any of that stuff. Who are going to bring me the stuff that I haven't seen and heard. And one of the saddest parts of that March 13th, when things came to an end for me in concert going, it was also the day, or was it the day before, that South by Southwest canceled. South by Southwest, for someone like me, I'll get to see 90 bands in a week, you know,
Mhm,
and before I go, I listen to 1,500 songs. I try to listen to a song from every single band that's going to play there. And I've got this crazy rating system that I do and so forth that, you know, as I listen to a song, I rate the song, and then I go back to my 4 and 5 star songs and I listen to them. So festivals are huge and important.
Well, since we don't have them for a while,
Right.
I mean, do you pay attention to virtual performances? I
I saw
mean,
2
like, is
shows
there
last
anything
night.
there
I
that
mean,
you,
yeah, I
and what
do.
catches your ear or eye from virtual performances, and how do people let you know about them?
Well, I mean, you know, it's so important to know that musicians know that if I don't like them, or if Felix doesn't like them, or if Banning doesn't like them for his show or whoever, it's not bad music. It's just we don't like it. You know, there's not a good or bad here. So things that strike me are the things that talked about when I heard the Beatles in '64. From the next 5 or 6 years of my life, here I put on something, and it was something I hadn't heard quite before. There was something new to it, something fresh to it, something like a dance beat is not going to get me. There's got to be something that's happening in that song. Texture. I'm a kind of a texture guy. I'm an electronic musician, so I like that there's got to be something in that song that's gonna like, whoa, that's cool. Hadn't heard that before, and you know, I am sure every day that things come my way that I just didn't get to. We do a Tiny Desk contest. We get 6,000 videos. You know, I can't watch 6,000. I can watch 1,500 or 2,000,
Mhm.
but you just can do what you can do, and it's I have the best job on planet Earth.
um, so where do you listen? Isabel Sofer from The Generators wants to know, while driving, at home, like how do you listen? It's getting harder and harder to sit around and listen.
I listen when I'm driving. Um, I'm trying to get it's harder than hell to find a new car stereo that still plays CDs.
Mm.
So right, I see Banning shaking his head. It's just when I had to change vehicles, I lost my CD player, so that was my major listening source. Because at the time I had my kids were younger, so I spent a lot of time driving them around after school and all that, and the front seat was full of CDs that I was listening to from work. Um, but I listen, I set some time aside. I try to set some time aside during the week to listen to stuff that's come in. I have, as soon as I get something that's got a new release, I will push it off into an archive, the mail archive that has all new releases, so that I can go back to it. And then I just open those emails so I don't have to find them in this long list, like Bob, like all these hundreds and thousands of emails. So I'll just immediately push it over.
Mhm.
Yeah, I listen there.
Panny just held up his iPod.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. You just listen to, now that we're doing walks, for exercise around here, listening during that time, if I can put them in the digital form, and listen on earbuds or whatever. It's just trying to find time to squeeze in, but there is no designated weekly or daily listening habit.
I have found that I cannot listen to CDs, and I am or streams. I
Mm.
am when I say streams, I think of SoundCloud and stuff that's less portable. What I do is I ask for downloads for everything. I throw them in a folder, a digital folder, and then I click play. And I don't try not to look at what I'm listening to. I don't want to be swayed by for the same reason I don't go to other music sites. I don't read other journalists. I just want to take it in and say, yes, this hit me. I don't want to be a bandwagon or a whatever that, I just want something to hit me. So I randomly play music. And then I say to my phone, hey, Shlomo, rate this song 4 stars or rate this song 2 stars. And so as it's playing, and then, and I usually often driving or when I'm cooking, I can do that. And then I go back and listen to those 4 and 5 star songs that I have, and try to make a show every week. I do a show of new music. It's usually 6 songs that I choose, and out of that pile of a week's worth of emails that is, a bundle, I try to pick out the ones that strike me. And that's when I'll go back and maybe read the press release and find out who these people are making this
That's
great music.
interesting, because that was one of my questions. Like, what was that? What part of the story from the artist did you want to know, or the publicist? And you're saying, oh, none at all, none.
There's one other thing that I do that is old school, and that is I'll look at an email and I'll look at either a photo of the album cover or the band, and a picture says an awful lot.
Interesting. That's
It
fascinating.
really does.
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of feels like stereotyping in some way, but honestly, if there's creation in the photograph and they're not just standing
Yeah.
in front of a brick wall,
Yeah.
that means something. If
It's very Zen. How you do one thing is
it's
how you do everything.
yeah, no, absolutely. Good way to
Yeah.
put it, Catalina.
I'm curious. So that's like kind of a one do, like for artists, is spend some time and care on some of these details that might catch the attention. They're not unimportant. Are there any others? Especially for, I mean, I keep thinking when you're saying, trusted sources, and it's so random, and you're in whatever, you're in Bogota, or you're in who knows where, and you really want to get on the tiny desk, really do.
Yeah.
I mean, or you want to, you want somebody like, NPR has got such a huge impact. I mean, it really does. So, what are some do's and what are some don'ts? I mean, what would you say? That's an interesting one. I'd never thought of that, the imagery. And you think of that, but not necessarily as catching the ears of Bob or Felix, or,
Do you do that at all, Felix?
Look at the imagery.
Yeah.
I go it's a little different because I want to try to be as representative, because I'm doing, what is that Latin music, right? It's such an all-encompassing, thing, right? So I try to be a little more, I dig a little bit more, because I try to be as representative as possible in all genres and all styles. Like I said, the hip hop stuff, the electronic stuff, the folkloric stuff, and the stuff that mixes everything in between. So I try to, when I do a new music show, and I'm going to try to do that, once a month now. When I do a new music show, I want to have these different styles and these different genres and these different ways to present what is, the Latin identity, either here in this country or from other countries. So it's a little, I will go through and say, okay, I need this, because I want to have equal representation, some Afro-Latino stuff, anything else in between. So yeah, I look at the photographs, I look at the imagery, I will look at the press releases to get an idea where the artist is from and what they're doing, if they're from this country or they're from another country, if they're, wherever they're from. Again, just trying to be as representative as possible for the show.
Anything in particular that you would suggest, Felix? Like,
No,
I mean, even in a press release, what, since you do read them and Bob doesn't, we know now doesn't, what do you, what's going to stand out, and what's maybe a don't too, like, please don't put this in.
The first thing I have to do is offer a blanket apology for not getting back to anyone on time. Okay,
including me.
I know.
And me. No.
I see people on this Zoom meeting right now that I'm like, oh shit, I owe them an email. I owe them a DM, right? I'm sorry, what was the question? I just had to get that apology out.
Kind of a way, since you do kind of scan or at least look at press release, anything in particular you think should be there or should not be there?
It's everybody's doing what they think they need to do. I don't think there are no do's and don'ts, because I do spend some time looking at all this, I will look at the headline, look at the first line, I'll look at a photograph, I'll look for this type of music, if maybe that's a do. I will read enough to say, okay, this is, electronic cumbia artist, or, this is a heavy metal mariachi band or whatever, or like
It's a little bit of genre information, at least as far as
looking, at least just to give me an idea of what it is that, where the artist is coming from. And of course, some artists, I already know and respect, and, I see the great Bobby Cespedes on the call here. So, whenever, if I see her name, I'm just going to know that, that it's quality.
the icons. Right?
Yeah. I mean, so it's just a combination of different things.
So I want to know from each of you, Bob and Felix, so what was the last song that kind of blew you away? The last artist that you were like, whoa, like, that caught your ear, that you like went to, like, it made Bob go to find out, to look at the dreaded press release.
Can I just respond one
Sure.
quickly to the before question? Because I didn't, and that is what I want like I want something really brief, concise, and I want somebody, if they're an unknown, to send me the thing they're most proud of. Like, artists will send you the thing that's the newest. I want to know, like, what have you done that you like just want people to hear? This idea of it's the newest is, I think it's a lot of crap. And I it's more important to get out into the world what you've done that is the thing that surprised yourself as an artist. So I just want to say that in brevity, like I'll get and a download.
Yeah.
I mean, I get these things that are, way long. It's who has time for that?
Well, that's interesting. Brevity, a good image, a carefully thought through image in terms of it representing your art and your work and your personality. And a little bit about genre for Felix. So there's just some really good do's. And I have a question here from Bill. So do you prefer artist bios that are more like creative, journalistic, or straightforward, factual?
Oh my God, I want straightforward, factual. But that said, Bill, you hit a good point, which is that if there's a creative nature to the way, if they are writing it, if it is from their voice and they've written something short, if they've written something that is creative and interesting, then I know they're a creative and interesting human, and I want to know more about them. So,
Tell us a little bit about the last song that just blew you away.
Wow. You go first, Felix.
Oh man, thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
I was sitting here while you were answering the last question. I was sitting here thinking, trying to think about that. The one thing that always stands out, and this is primarily because I play a little music on the side. I'm a percussionist, and so I'm leaning toward my training and my education and my passion for all that stuff is in the Afro-Cuban realm. So it's when I hear stuff like that always catches my attention. And honestly, I mean, it's maybe not the last time, but it's certainly the one that really stands out was when I first heard the band Ife from Puerto Rico, and the way that they had reimagined the Afro-Cuban tradition while still respecting it. They came at it from a place of respect and admiration, and they reimagined it with all their electronics and all that stuff like that, and great musicianship. It was a CD. Again, it was a CD I had on my desk. I hadn't listened to yet. I was working late at the building at NPR, working on a show and working late till like 1 o'clock or something. And I get in the car and I said, okay, let me put this in. And just, as soon as I got on North Capitol Avenue, driving back to Silver Spring here, and I heard those opening vocals with the electronic thing. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Because I recognized some of the tradition, and I just listened. I drove all the way home and I sat in front of my house until the album finished, because those are the kind of things, those are those moments. Like I say that I'm always looking for the sound I've never heard. That's what drives me. That's what I'm out there listening for. And I hear things that I've heard before, but I'm always looking for that sound. And that was one of those cases where it's like, oh my God, the whole, like it was like hearing Kind of Blue for the first time, right? I mean, it went from black and white to color. And, you know, it was like that kind of profound impact on me personally, you know, because of what they do and my knowledge of that stuff. So that kind of thing is it stands out in understanding and appreciating their music.
And sometimes it's taking the familiar and just putting a little twist on it. Like it doesn't, if it's not completely, you know, something new, but the Global Fest again, Nora Brown, like raise your hand if you know who she is. So she was an artist I had never heard of. We are putting together, you know, the Tiny Desk Meets Global Fest. And the very first video that came my way was this 15-year-old girl in a sort of basement, it turns out underground in New York City, playing the banjo and singing like she was a very mature, almost elderly woman. She really understood old time music in a way that I still don't think I could. I mean, she was mind boggling. And sometimes like the live experience, like seeing her on a video was sort of helpful. Like I would have heard that song, like those two things together, that element of just seeing, you know, she's in 10th grade and she's playing this music. She's studied with many people to understand the story. She, you know, she's not just like picked up a banjo and started playing. She digs into that. She spends time with these old time players, and you could see how she just knows how to turn it around. So Nora Brown is certainly one.
And you discovered her as a Global Fest
Yeah.
submission,
She was the
right?
first entry that Global Fest had
Wow.
sent. They had curated her, and she got a radio story on NPR, and then her Tiny Desk is I don't know how many views already. Maybe Diane knows, but it's up there.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment, and a very surprising one too. Like you said, totally unexpected. So, have you ever felt that you made a mistake? You know, that you heard something and you kind of heard the song or the 5 seconds and put it away, and then later on said somebody brought it to your attention. You're like, wow, that's actually really wonderful. And if so, was it their mistake or your mistake?
Felix and I don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, of course, right? I mean, I can't think of what that is, but Jesus, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the thing about curation and the stuff we listen to is that, hey, if I'm in a crappy mood, the song's not going to hit me the same way as if I'm feeling flying high, you know? And, but I think our experience, and probably Felix would say this too, the experience of knowing when to say, there's something interesting here. I'm not in the mood for this. I'm going to try again later. But sure, I mean, make mistakes all the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big stack of, at least in the old days, a big stack of CDs. And, you know, we're going to listen to, like I said, one song and like, oh, you know what? The third song was the one that really got the message across, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, artists, make that first song your best song always, please. You have no idea. Don't wait 20 minutes.
I have a question here from Mira. When you listen to songs with lyrics in other languages, do you search for the translations? Do you try to find out what the words are saying? You know, for Felix and I, it's Spanish, so it might not be yeah.
I will, for when it comes to that, I mean, I will listen and you know, if there's, you know, like a colloquialism, if there's something cultural in the language, like a lot of the Afro-Caribbean stuff has slang that I'm not familiar with because of my Mexican-American background, you know, I'll just want to make sure that I know what they're saying with the colloquialisms and regionalisms and stuff like that. And then some of the stuff, like getting from Brazil, the heavy metal from Brazil and the Afro funk and all that stuff from Brazil, I'll look it up if I can.
And Bob?
Lyrics are really important to me, and I think one of my weak points is that because I only speak one language, it is a barrier of entry for me. Um, and so when my love for Afro pop sort of music happened in the 80s, um, the music grabbed me well enough to not kind of care
Mhm.
initially as what they were singing about, and there was no internet to sort of figure that stuff out. Um, Now I try a little harder, but it's definitely a blind spot that I have, that because lyrics are so mean so much to me. I don't want to hear songs about baby, baby, I love you. I just that stuff drives me up a wall, and so I want to hear something that's going to make me think different. That's going to make me, I don't know, see something that I see all the time in a different way. And so language is not having the ability to speak other languages. And God, I've tried, but I'm terrible. Is a real. It's hard for me.
Well, it's interesting because there are some great music, from different international global lands that are like baby baby.
Yeah, I
Once
know.
you discover the lyrics, then it's like a little bit like, oh, this is baby baby. Or if you don't have the context, like you hear Los Bamban singing about bread, and you're actually, it's the context of Cuba and being in line and other
Right.
things, so how do international artists, get that context to you
Yeah, that's
so
a
that it
tough
gets
one.
beyond that.
I
Yeah.
mean, first, it's trusted sources that will get me to spend bunches of time with it. So, but how the artists, I think, at least for the All Songs Considered audience, um, I'd say that for the most part, it's an English speaking audience. And so there has to be something beyond the what's in the words that most won't understand that is interesting musically. So the music really has to be the thing that's going to grab. And now, thankfully, in this wonderful world, uh, we can now go find out what they're saying. Um, but then, there are plenty of artists we bring to the Tiny Desk who do not speak English, and I trust people like Felix and others, and the curators that are many in this room,
To bring
to
that to your
bring me stuff
attention. Yeah.
to to get my attention. Yeah.
Well, Celine from Under the Radar Music Podcast says precisely Tiny Desk seems to be reaching beyond the indie global music and now beginning to encompass rap, hip hop, mainstream pop. What motivated the move is the question.
I, I'll start, Felix. You can continue. It was never calculated. I mean,
Mm.
Tiny Desk started as something that I started uh, to bring. We heard an artist at South by Southwest who we couldn't understand because the sound system was so crappy and everybody was watching a basketball game. I mean, I love South by Southwest, but that's what happens at South by Southwest. So Laura Gibson, we just jokingly invited her to play my desk, and we made that happen, and the intimacy and the beauty of that made it more. And so I started booking more artists, and our team of people at NPR is, Stephen Thompson. He's younger than I, but another white male, and Robin Hilton, another white male, and our tastes were very similar, and that's what we did. And as NPR music shifted and got more people and more people with more interesting tastes and or certainly varied tastes than us. Um, as the main curator of that, it's my job to reflect the tastes of our staff. My rule is that nobody comes to the Tiny Desk unless there's somebody on staff who's passionate about the artist, and so I might not care for the artist, and hip hop is not my thing, and but I understand that if someone on staff is passionate about that, come on.
It's for, to answer the question, I kind of have to look at what we do within the larger context of NPR, and that just by presenting Latin music in whatever form that is, we're bringing something in that that has maybe is not on the mainstream of the NPR audience. And it's a much larger conversation, but we're working within that construct and those sets of aesthetics and ideals. So bringing somebody like Betsaida Machado, who is an Afro-Venezuelan, Afro-Colombian folkloric musician, is something that I consider part of the mission. But then I've had people say, well, you had Juanes and Mon Laferte singing together. That was pretty pop. It can be considered pretty pop, but within the context of the NPR listener, they don't know who Juanes is, they don't know who Mon Laferte is. So, or chances are they may not. So then it's still a method of introduction. It's still a method of a way to introduce people to something that they may not be used to or be familiar with, and that particular show, plus it was so dynamic, Mon Laferte, the whole different, where they're coming from and what they were, where their music is and where they were as musicians, where they are as musicians. It was a nice, I thought it was a nice combination. And we talked about it ahead of time with the people that were pitching it, and it just worked. It just worked so well, the two of them. Even though they would be considered, especially Juanes, would be considered a mega pop star. He sells out stadiums all over, Latin America. But again, keeping in context with what the Tiny Desk is about, it's a different context, right? It's stripped down. He's singing in a room, with just a handful of people, which is, he told me later, it's daunting for him because he's not used to having that small of a crowd, right? So yeah, I think that, again, I'm bringing it from a different perspective, different context, and trying to balance it. We just had Maluma do a Tiny Desk from home. Those, Maluma, Ozuna, Bad Bunny, all those guys, man, they're tiny. Anything they touch turns to multi-million views on YouTube. So where we have to balance that, we have to think about, okay, how are we gonna, if we're gonna do that, how are we gonna present it in a way that Maluma may have 3 million views on his last video, but there still may be people within the NPR audience who don't know him. So it's still a matter of introduction, even at a pop realm. And it's got to be there's a lot of pop I won't listen to. And touching on that, I mean, going back, I didn't pay attention. I knew what was going on, but we never included reggaeton or anything like that. We didn't include pop reggaeton or reggaeton light, as I call it. We didn't include any of that on the show for a long time until Despacito, because then that particular song was, social and cultural and commercial phenomena. And so that changed the dynamic, that changed the equation for us, for Alt.Latino. It's like, okay, I got to pay attention to this because it's reflective of something in the culture. Not that it's popular and it's selling a bunch of CDs or some bunch of downloads and streams, but it's reflecting something in the culture. And even now, you have reggaeton artists coming from Colombia, J Belvin. So even within the Latino community, there's a conversation about, okay, well, is he really a reggaeton artist if he's Colombia, or where it's an Afro Puerto Rican music? There's that conversation. There's that kind of friction within the Latino community as well. So it's presenting all of that stuff puts it in a different context. It's a long answer to that.
No, it's fascinating. It's all fascinating because I think we see the results, but wonder about the process so much and how the magic unfolds. And the Tiny Desk at home have been surprisingly powerful. Have you been surprised at that? And are we going to continue to see that as we move forward in maybe a hybrid or not completely virtual world?
So that date again, March 13th, which is the last time I saw a show, which was Lankum. By the way, if anybody doesn't know Lankum, brilliant band. But it was also the day where our boss told us that we weren't going to come back for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And I thought, oh wait, but I've got Soccer Mommy, an artist, Soccer Mommy, coming in 8 days. So I called her. I figured she's home too because everybody's canceling everything. And I called her up and said, hey, why don't you do a concert from your bedroom? And then I started booking more, and then the team started booking more. And the copy on our page, you'll see every one of those pages says, the Tiny Desk is doing this for a little while. Well, we thought it was just going to be this little thing that was going to last 6 weeks or something at most.
Mm.
And I think it's actually been a really beautiful thing. I really love, and I do this when I look around Zoom rooms, I love to see what's in the background of people's places. Again, it's like that album cover, that photo of the band. Those choices are not accidental. The picture you have behind you is not accidental. Well, my fireplace maybe, but the it tells you about the person. And I try, as much as like some artists are like, oh my God, I'm going to do Tiny Desk, got to do big production. And I'm like, no, no, no. And you can't stop them all because we just don't have that much control about what they're going to do. We give them guidelines and so forth. But I love the ones that have the intimacy, because that's what the specialty of Tiny Desk, I think, is, and that exudes their personality, and their personality is in their surroundings. Like, I don't like it when they go to studios or whatever. I just want to see their living rooms and their bedrooms and their parents' picture on the piano and all that stuff. Like, that's really beautiful. And I was saying this the other day, which it's come to my realization that I don't think the home series will end. Certainly we'll go back to the office and we'll do concerts from the office and stuff, but I think there are opportunities to do things, especially international, that we wouldn't be able to do. And just waiting for some band to happen to be coming to Washington, which is how we do things. We've done 1,000 of them, but still we will be able to do things that we wouldn't have been able to do because we created this thing. And yeah, I've been really proud of it. We did 125 home concerts last year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be wonderful, especially for, situations where there's visa issues, there's,
Right,
there's like
yeah.
travel issues, there's cost issues. I mean,
Yep.
so many international bands, if they're large, can't, can't swing it. And if they don't have a tour, but this could get them, the exposure or the interest to have some of that happen. So I think we're going to go back to a hybrid world.
Yeah.
When we go back.
Yeah. I mean, and let me add one more comment on the backgrounds for that. I mean, when I saw, we did Bob and I and Bobby Carter, who also produces the Tiny Desk concerts. We did a series of shows, special series of shows for Latino Heritage Month back in October. And when I saw Babel Gilberto's video, I thought, oh, well, they used a green screen. That's not cool. What are we going to do about this? And I wrote to the publicist, and I said, no, man, that's where she lives. That's the view outside of her pad. Okay.
Beautiful mountain. Just
it was a stunning backdrop, right? Yeah. And so that is, but to me, that offers insight into, given her lineage. I mean, we know Babel, right? But that offers insight into her as a person. She had her dog, little dog in the thing, and dog would come up. So it just adds, like Bob says, it just kind of peels away a layer. Like, okay, this is a person. You see, it's Babel Gilberto, but this is her living room, and that's her little dog, right? And it just makes it a little bit more special.
That's beautiful, and I think that to me has been the takeaway, because some of this is maybe more even common sense at times, but that you can tell your story in so many ways. And so when you tell your story as an artist, then pay attention. It's interesting, the background, the image, the different ways you can tell your story without maybe in a conventional press release. And especially if you are international, you don't have a publicist and you don't, so that's beautiful. So that was your last concert. What was yours, Felix? That was Bob's last concert. Last live. Yeah. Remember? That was another question that came up.
Yeah. I don't, it's different. I don't, it's going to sound weird. I don't go out often. It's here in DC. It's limited, and it was just starting to open up because my oldest son's in college now, so I didn't go out for a long time because I had 2 small kids, right? And then it just wasn't conducive for me to go hang out and check music out. I'd have to wait for South by or, wherever, LAMC, do these intense listening periods. The last live show, honestly, I don't know. I see Allison. It may have been at the thing in Rockville.
Strathmore?
Yeah, no, the APM in Rockville. I think it was the Afro-Cuban singer.
It was Omar Sosa.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, it was Omar.
Oh wow,
Thank
that's a
you.
good one.
Yeah,
That would have.
that may have been the last show that I went to, because Allison and I sat next
But
to
the
each
night
other.
after you performed, Felix,
Yeah.
that was
That was-
actually my last show when you performed.
That's
That was March 15th was the magic date for me, because that was the last gig that our band did, before
Okay.
the lockdown.
yeah. It was interesting because I had my last band was Roberto Fonseca and the Lyric Opera of all things the same day, which was kind of a great day. But I was already, feeling the COVID nervousness.
Yeah.
And then the next weekend would have been Omar Sosa here in Chicago.
Oh.
At that point, I was like, I don't think so, So
Yeah.
we miss that so much. But we thank you both for making that, come to life through the Tiny Desk and through the shows and through all Things Considered and through NPR Alt.Latino, through everything that NPR music does. What a wonderful and wonderful and now continually more eclectic experience. Somebody brought out, which I think is interesting, that the more diverse your staff, then the more those trusted voices will get to.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
Oh,
just putting that
absolutely.
out. But thank you so much for
Thanks, Catalina.
for that. I think that we're having a goodbye from our MC Mira, but it's been a pleasure. And yeah, sure. You want to, and if you want to add anything, this is the,
I just
please
want
do.
to,
Yeah.
and I want to thank, because I see so many familiar faces, so many familiar names who I've never actually met, seen face to face. Like Bob was saying, we couldn't do this without your help, man. Honestly, sending us stuff when we do have an artist. You guys jump through hoops of fire to make sure that the artists are there, to get to the desk, either before the sound check or the day on the way out of town. We could not do it without the help of the promoters, the publicists, and anyone behind the scenes, that can make this happen. Honestly, just so much of that depends. That the success of this thing depends on the folks in the room here. So, thank you.
Yeah,
it's a dialogue for sure. And thank you, certainly over the years, you've brought so much music that we didn't know to our ears, and nothing that makes us more grateful. Thank you.
Thank you to you too for contributing to the show. Come on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you so much for having me contribute. What can I say? Gracias. Yeah, gracias, Bob. Gracias, Felix. Gracias, Mira. Hola.
Hi, Catalina. Thank you so much for that wonderful conversation. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Felix. I know many of us are so happy to learn more about your process and your commitment to having, share your diverse staff to help get more diverse artists and audiences and more music in their ears. So very happy to have this conversation.